I will set the zeitgeist straight.
There's a very specific part of my spinal column that tingles like a rattlesnake when I'm watching a good movie.
This sounds like a transcript of your film conversation with buddies at a party once the edible kicks in. Coen Brothers' latest is a big let-down ski.
I hate you for making me hear that.
I need a brain, I need a heart, I need courage, I need a refund. Like, what are you talking about? Hey everybody, welcome to Off the Mark, good chat on bad takes of great movies. Let's be honest, the only thing that would make this show better is if at the end we played a cover of Paul Young's Every Time You Go Away. At the end, that would just make everything great. I'm Dave Columbo.
$6 in my right nut says we're not landing in Chicago, Dave. I'm Mick Andrews.
You always come in with a lot of fire. I love that. It's
Gotta come in hot.
You gotta come in hot. And our guest today, you've seen him in The Other Guys, College Humor, The Pete Holmes Show, and The Video Garage on TikTok. Comedian and actor Matt McCarthy, everybody.
Well, hello there.
Oh my God, it's the stand-up. I swear to God, my stand-up, my hosting energy still constantly makes me expect an audience reaction on a
Did you just reflexively turn and offer your hand for a handshake as you pass the mic off?
Are we doing pound or are we doing the handshake? I can't quite figure that out. But welcome. Yeah, this is it's a delight to have you on. Appreciate you joining us today because your Video Garage has literally reintroduced so much media into the world that otherwise would have been forgotten, and I think you're doing the Lord's work. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
How did it come across where it's like, I just want to start collecting this, or did you always have it, or was it a choice that you made at some point?
Oh, no, I've always had a big VHS collection and movie collection, and it's just, I mean, it was like 20 years ago when DVDs replaced VHS. It was like, oh, I can get VHS for cheap now. Terrific, but the thing I've always been interested in and wasn't able to figure out until like a couple of years ago where to find tapes of things just recorded off of television. And then once I realized we started going to estate sales out here in LA, my wife and I was like, oh, this is because people don't think anybody wants it, and and they're right. Nobody does want it. It's really only me. I don't know who else.
How do you not come off like an absolute psychopath where you're like, hey, these ones that you recorded, can I take these off your hands?
Yeah, it's funny. It took me a long time to even settle on what the terminology would be. Like on eBay, they call them used blanks, which I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But I usually just say recorded off TV to,
right,
anybody else. But
used
like
blanks sounds like a medical term too.
Yeah.
I don't like that so much.
Nurse, we need to remove these used blanks from the operating room.
And I would be remiss to also thank you for turning, your wrestling tapes once a week. You're turning on an entire generation that would otherwise not be introduced to pro wrestling, and for that I tip my cap to you because it's a hard world out there for us wearing Macho Man Randy Savage shirts to people who don't understand the reference.
It's funny, there are a lot of people who in the comments are like, I've never watched wrestling, never been interested, but this is at least interesting what you're telling us about it.
I've never understood why it wasn't more popular. Like when you're a kid and you're like, what's this undead mortician is fighting a $1 million man for a big shiny belt? Like who watches that and goes, what else is on? Like I don't understand how more kids didn't literally fall in love,
Beats me. I mean, some people are just not intelligent and they don't.
Yeah.
There's no culture. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no helping some people. It's just like Steve Carell said in Beautiful Boy, you can't save people.
Uh-huh. So basically for this show, what we love to do is we love to wince through the worst reviews of the best movies ever made. Today, We are going to talk about one of the best comedies of all time and a searing indictment on our country's transportation industry. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. John Hughes, 1987, starring, I believe, Steve Martin is his name, John Candy. Is it the most famous Thanksgiving movie? Is it like what even comes close?
I mean,
Any
nothing.
other
I mean,
Thanksgiving movies? No. This is the one you want to watch if you want to feel good about yourself. There's also Home for the Holidays, and then that one is just. I'm like, that's a hard pass for me.
I think I had like 3 different girlfriends try to show me Home for the Holidays. You know, like I'm gonna make you like.
I got showed it by an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. And it's like, no, I've seen it. I know what it is. I'm just not.
I'm all set.
You know,
I'd rather watch nothing. Thanks.
I'm 20. I don't want to watch middle-aged people re-examine their lives while dealing with family. So sorry. Rewatching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, first of all, phenomenal. Just one of the greatest movies ever made. I was surprised at how many times Steve Martin almost gets run over in the movie. It's like 5 or 6 times, and not in a comedic, 80s screwball comedy kind of way. In a violent, his head almost gets popped like a grape.
They lean on it a lot.
It
starts with almost 2.
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon, who I forgot was in this movie completely.
Yeah.
I saw him and I was like, "There's no fucking way that's Kevin." and his eyes there, I'm like, "That's fucking Kevin Bacon." He's Kevin Bacon. I totally forgot. That happens like in 4 different cities. A cab driver tries to murder Steve Martin.
It's such a good movie. It's phenomenal. I'd love to for us all to just throw out what we love about it. Hearing the stories of the extra hour and a half or 2 hours of deleted scenes and outtakes that were lost to time until very recently. And, just knowing that John Candy, for every scene that you see where John Candy says a thing and they cut away, there was 4 minutes of him riffing that just, got left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, that scene at the end, the final kind of where he runs back and sees John Candy sitting there. Apparently, that monologue was like.
Yeah, they go to a diner.
It was like a full page.
They go to a diner. They sit down, and John Candy lays it out.
He's got a whole thing.
Yeah, and it's just such a testament to not since Star Wars has there been such an amazing editing job to perfectly curtail all of this extra stuff into something that's just a smooth, easy watch. It's just phenomenal. It's a great movie. It's perfect. It moves so fast. Something that I always thought about the movie was that John Candy, in lesser hands, this is not the movie is well written, but in lesser hands, it would probably fall by the wayside if not for John Candy's literal perfect performance of a annoying, schlubby, shower ring salesman.
Yeah, and Steve Martin also just manages to get by without being completely unlikable and the villain of the movie.
Great point. Yeah.
I mean, both of them. They on paper, I don't like either of those people.
Right. Is that what that's something that is definitely a testament of 80s movies where on paper this shouldn't work. Back to the Future should not. What all of the books that you read about, you have to explain why they're friends, why a high school student and a crazy literally a crazy Einstein scientists are just best friends, and you're not going to explain it. Things that just shouldn't work because of the magic of the director, the actors, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I wonder if it's not just that these days everybody is predisposed to poking holes and stuff. I feel like 80s movies had a lot more, or just kind of 80s and 90s in general, but older movies had that more go with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just the internet and social media and the barrage of content and opinions, whereas something that would have just been an offhand comment from your friend 35 years ago, what's this teenager doing being friends with this old scientist? I don't know. That's a good question. And then that would be the end of it. Now it's like, somebody's whole
unpack it.
Someone's whole
somebody's gonna like do a week dissertation on this. Or
there is a lot that I have a problem with the modern sensibility of people who make entire careers on YouTube just tearing stuff down. But the other end of that coin is the fact that so many of these reviews that we read of bad takes of great movies, there is an arrogance to the movie reviewer where they feel like they don't have to come with receipts. The good thing about the modern era of being overly critical and YouTube people monetizing purely with that job, it's that there is kind of an expectation that whatever you're going to say, you better bring it.
I trace it back to the movie Clerks because I really can't think of anything prior to that. Maybe When Harry Met Sally, because of the way that they talk about Casablanca. But Clerks took it to the next, I think, logical heightening, where they have that discussion about plumbers, like contractors getting killed on the second Death Star. And it just became like, I feel like that was like those two movies. I can't think of anything else being so hyper, like, not meta, because they're not referencing that they're in a movie, but just a movie where the characters discuss movies in such a different way. I trace it back to that, and then because like it's almost quaint. So like that conversation in Clerks, it's almost like that's cute. Whereas at the time it was like, oh my God,
yeah. Well,
I never thought about the Death Star having toilets on it.
For me, it's that next step, because I feel like we all watched Clerks and we were like, that is a great point. Now let's go have lunch. And I still love Star Wars, and that didn't destroy Star Wars for me. It's now that the expectation is you don't get to like what you like because I just called out this thing, and it's the auteur's responsibility to cover all of these bases before you even decide to make a movie. And there's just an angry energy to it.
And it's funny how people, I find this a lot in the comment section, certain people really assume everyone is having the same experience they are,
Here's
it's
what
like
I
a
do.
Russian doll of criticism. It's just, there's a certain point where like you can't read them anymore.
Right. It's like, well, I don't know what to, but at the end of the day, it's
even on YouTube, like below the first comment, it just hides people's replies.
Yeah, it's like would you like to
nobody
read
gives
more
a shit
of
about
this?
what someone thought about. You comment to a comment? Are you kidding me? What are you, made of time?
Although I do appreciate one of our last videos of movies that we did was Saving Private Ryan, and I got a little clickbaity on a clip about it where the reviewer that we read said that Saving Private Ryan has no story, which is absurd. And so we talked about that, but then for the YouTube video I put, Saving Private Ryan has no story ? Exclamation point. Trying to be a little like, hey, this is
with our dumb faces in front of it being like, come after us.
Yeah. And so someone was like, I don't even need to see the video to know that, like, that you're as someone who didn't serve, you're horrific. And I'm like, okay. And then somebody like, I actually clicked the next one. I'm like, let's see what the second comment is. And it was someone going like, dude, watch the video. They're not saying that. They're mad at the people who are saying that.
To be fair, Dave, I have always said that you need to be a veteran in order to review movies.
Right, that's true. That's 100% true.
I think it lines up with kind of what I've always been saying anyway. So I'm glad that someone else out there is on board.
Let's hop in here. We'll talk a little bit about the movie. November 25th, 1987. It was a very good year. On a $15 million budget. I love it. I love going back to these.
Adorable.
You made a movie for $15 million.
Man, fucking like mid-budget comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like
like
a week of craft services on a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it
if
just
you're
breaks
lucky.
my heart. It just doesn't. It just does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
you
But,
know?
like,
just the
Check this
brutal.
out. How like this budget and this amount made at the box office, the low numbers that we're talking about for what is essentially one of the greatest comedies ever made. $15 million budget made $49.5 million with no international release. It opened,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
It opened 9th and then moved up to 2nd at the box office. Other movies at the time, and this is my favorite part of the show: Three Men and a Baby, Teen Wolf 2, Fatal Attraction, and The Running Man.
What held the title? What didn't it beat out?
It was originally The Running Man, and then Three Men and a Baby came up and
Screamed up to the top. Yeah, as
Yeah.
well deserved. Well deserved.
when we were doing Carpenter's The Thing, like looking at what else was in the movie theaters, summer of '82, it was just the greatest time to be alive.
Yeah.
It was like, do I want to go see Blade Runner or E.T. or that's just an amazing stacked list.
96 is another good year. It's so
Yeah.
weird how that happens, that it's just like, boom, here are 10 of the best movies you'll ever see for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's people who I've never sat down to try to figure it out, but it's like that will argue again. It's kind of a rib out of what we were talking about before. They make this very stern argument that 1999 is the greatest year in the history of movies, and I have found so many ever since I've noticed that. I have found so many turkeys that came out in 1999, and I'm
Yeah.
always so fast to point out, like, oh, greatest year in movies, folks.
Yeah, but it was still the 90s. It was still like I remember what I saw Spice World in theaters. That's all I'm saying. Let's just, like
People get hot. Like, there are some people who I feel like when I talk about my shelf of bad movies and like I bring up Spice World, they're like, "Oh, you don't get it. It's supposed to be camp." And I was like, "No.
yeah,
No.
Yeah.
It's not. We're trying to make a comedy. They were trying to make like A Hard Day's Night,
yeah,
and it is not good.
yeah,
Yeah. They're
That's not.
bad at
That's not
acting.
camp. Yeah.
yeah.
That is not camp.
The
Yeah.
retroactive framing of
Yeah.
of like
It's
what
camp.
something
I'm like-
was trying to do.
I'm like, no. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is camp.
Yeah.
That is a perfect example of it.
My-
They knew exactly what they were doing with that film.
Either
My-
it's not camp or they are the 5 best actors that have ever.
Oh,
if there
yeah.
is some sort of
Right.
like folding in on itself meta.
They're just a
thing
bunch
here.
of Daniel Day-Lewis's who are just like they can't figure out why it didn't work. You know.
The other one that I'm like, folks, Howard the Duck is an abysmal film, and they're like, oh no, man, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like one person, they were like, what don't you like about it? I'm like, I don't know. We'll start with the interspecies relationship and go from there.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch. It's like
Yeah.
for me, it's genuinely I'll watch it and I'll be like, I'm gonna give it another shot. I got it, and I'm like, nah, I don't have it in me tonight. I'm not doing it. Like,
Right, because there are bad movies that are funny, like Battlefield Earth or The Final Alliance, but like there are bad movies that are just bad, and then there are bad movies that are so bad it's fascinating. And I find Howard the Duck to be so rock bottom bad. It's truly fascinating to watch how, like Garbage Pail Kids the movie. Unwatchably bad.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck, it's like, man, they really thought they were onto something.
Garbage Pail Kids the movie, it's surreal because you're watching some some real effort being put into the effects, and
Yeah.
it's like did nobody even look at the script? Did nobody
It's also,
even?
yeah, it's funny what they thought through and what they didn't
Yeah.
think through in that movie.
They
That,
worked
like, they're
really
all,
hard.
Don't they all like live in like a magician's shop or something like that for a while?
Yeah,
Am I
it's
remembering
like
that right?
he has the garbage pail in this place.
Yeah,
And
it's
he
like literally
describes
like
it-
it's like the Gremlins plot, isn't it? Kind of thing,
Yeah,
like that. It's
yeah.
some
Yeah,
magic.
he explains it like it's Pandora's box. This is Pandora's garbage pail. Don't open this.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump in here. This is from the New York Times, November 25th, 1987. We don't name names on the podcast, but please feel free to jump in and give us your thoughts at any point that you feel necessary. The circuitous journey that is embarked upon in John Hughes's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is supposed to range from New York to Chicago, but its final destination is surprising. The two traveling companions, Neil Page and Del Griffith, do indeed make it to the Windy City, but they also reach the place where confidences are voiced, insecurities are expressed, and friendships are formed.
Just spoilers off the bat, by the way.
I know,
they
it's-
make it. They make it at the end. In the end,
That
It's
is, yeah, that's wild. to
It's
just-
in that era
What was
where
that
it's
first
like-
word? Circuitous?
Circuitous.
Oh.
The circuitous journey. One need not be a student of Mr. Hughes's teen-oriented films, among them 16 Candles and Some Kind of Wonderful, to sense that these are not usually the concerns of middle-aged traveling businessmen. However, Mr. Hughes conceives of this film's adult characters as lost adolescents and seems to regard their mature status as a terrible burden that they will, with luck, be able to shed.
Can you imagine watching that movie?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
There's nothing. I mean, I would. Yeah, John Hughes made teen movies, but Jesus, there's nothing about Steve Martin in this movie is childlike.
I mean,
he is.
Yeah.
there's times
like
where, like,
Or John Candy
From
for that
Midwest.
for that
John
matter.
Candy too. Yeah, he's got a playfulness, but like, nah.
Yeah,
he's an adult man.
he lacks, social graces and, personal space, but
I like it when these reviewers almost immediately from the top tell you, I was watching this movie with a weird subtext.
Yeah,
So
I came into this expecting an aged up like St. Elmo's.
So nothing that I'm about to say is going to make sense because it's coming from like I was thinking of these as children and John Hughes not knowing how to write adult characters.
like this is like the exact opposite of. Do you remember the first time you saw the trailer for Get Out? And they do the whole trailer, and then at the end it says from Jordan Peele, and you're like, from Key and Peele? What?
That Jordan Peele.
Yeah. Like this movie should have been in a vacuum where you're like, just review the movie, not what you assume this writer
Right.
director
Hughes.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along those
'Cause-
lines, do you guys remember what the first movie that I think what was the Devil Inside? Was it the elevator movie? Like
the
when
trailer.
Shyamalan like had lost
Oh yeah.
Like-
that is the devil inside.
he
Yeah.
lost America at some point.
Yeah.
Like people were like, we're done. And I was in the theater and the trailer came up and then like the whole trailer, oh my God, find the mystery, and then it was like from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan. And everyone was just like, everyone in the audience were like, like literally they
Just,
turned on a
no.
dime, like one too
It's
many.
funny.
Yeah.
It's such a I feel like that's it's so rarely now with media being spread out and all of us being spread out and the internet compartmentalizing us into smaller and smaller boxes separate from one another. Is there such a universal experience as people watching the trailer for whatever it was,
Yeah.
and then when his name comes up, people being audible groans.
Oh, like you watched, you listened to everybody decide not to go see it all at the same time. Like, oh, I guess I don't
It's
care.
like, oh, that looked good.
Yeah, I think I was
What a shame.
I was one or two of his movies later than everybody else. Was it Lady in the Water? Was that the
Ooh,
the-
woof.
yeah? Like I walked out going like, great, another knocks it out of the park again. And everyone was just kind of like, go, tell me why. And I'm like, I mean, it's just another M. Night. It's just, it's a fable. And everyone was just kind of like, I don't want to tell you not to like the movie you want to like, but I guarantee, don't be on tape saying you love it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then I went and watched it again. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Okay. I'm sorry. I was a little bit behind everybody else, but yeah, you're all right.
But I remember Signs for me was like, I was probably like 11 or 12 when that came out. And if an 11 or 12-year-old is watching your movie with a massive twist going like, there are cups of water all over the place, that is going to be significant in some way.
I've found that to be such a divisive movie on just since I've been on TikTok, where I'm like, people really love the movie Signs, and I'm like, okay, great, good for you.
Yeah,
I'm glad for you.
There was
I like it when people like things, but none of it is right.
Look,
but like, my wife and I are such big fans of the movie Jeff Who Lives at Home, and the opening of that when Jason Segel's talking into his tape deck, and he's like, I watched the movie Signs again last night. That is such a hilarious opening line to a movie, and it's like, you almost know everything you need to know about this character.
Yeah.
The way he's just like, oh man.
I was gonna say that we were talking about like referencing movies in your movies, because I don't know who said it once, but I've always thought about the rule of movies, which is don't put a better movie in your movie. I think you're very safe with talking about
That's
Signs
funny.
in any movie.
With Signs, the whole idea of it being just the water, like what are other movies where I feel like War of the Worlds was another one where the audience was just kind of let down. It's like you prepped us with Independence Day that at some point we're going to shoot into outer space and set off a nuke. Like, you can't have the end of the movie be like, and it was the microbes of Earth, or like turns out it was
woefully
water.
Unprepared for the thing that they opted into.
Yeah, the expectation that an audience would like go along. Like, you're not the Coen brothers. You can't say, "Hey, it's all bullshit and nothing really matters," and like only they can do those kinds of movies.
Magnificent. I would love a Coen Brothers
disaster movie.
Yeah, or like a Signs
Invasion
remake of Coen Brothers, where it's just kind of hard, long shots of the alien just having like a two-shot with it. That'd be great.
Yeah. But like the idea, there was a whole era of movies where like they thought we can have Act 3 just be, and then the aliens just start passing out, and the audiences are like, no, you didn't.
Well, you came for the suspense. You got what you came for. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Anyway, sorry to bring it back to this the Hughes thing. One thing about this movie in particular, having just this time around rewatching it, one thing that stuck with me is how different this movie is from his other movies. He has so many like bits in this movie that he doesn't bring in. Like, for my one thing having rewatched, like the last time I watched it, now it's going to be in my head forever, is just John Candy's face when Steve Martin opens the cab the first time, and he just like, and then they cut to like 10 minutes later, they're in the airport, and you see Steve Martin trying to figure out how he recognizes this guy. And it cuts back to John Candy still sitting in his seat in the airport, but they put a cab door in front of him. They're just a floating cab door. And they make him do the again. It's like a Zucker Brothers bit. It's so like not in a John Hughes movie, and it works so that, and like the scene where they're driving in between the trucks and they turn into skeletons, and then John Candy's the devil.
Just turns into the devil.
Just insane stuff that is not what I think of when I think of John Hughes. So There are times when I think these reviews are written before they even watch the movie.
So Mr. Martin, in the film's earlier sections, is the epitome of corporate stiffness, doing most of his acting with his cheek muscles and bristling murderously when someone steals a taxi from him at rush hour. The film is no more comfortable with this exaggerated version of grown-up reserve than it is with the misplaced confessional pieties that color its conclusion.
What does that even mean?
Again, imagine someone reading the newspaper going like, honey, should we see planes, trains, and automobiles? I don't know. I have no idea. Like,
I can't even picture Steve Martin's cheeks.
It basically saying that it doesn't do either of them well. He doesn't portray adults, which is kind of like insulting that like John Hughes just doesn't know how adults work. But
it's also insulting not only to John Hughes but to Steve Martin and John Candy.
Right. But
like they're professional comedian actors who are extremely well respected at this point in their careers.
Oh, at the top of both of their games.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of currency coming after Steve Martin and John Candy like in 1987.
They just feel so adolescent. It's like, no, they don't. Steve Martin's basically what that guy was trying to write his way out of in that sentence, guy or girl, who knows? But look it up. But that person is trying to go like they're acting like teenagers. Yeah, Steve Martin may not be acting like a teenager, but he's, I guess, like trying to write his way around that by going like, well, the grumpiness is part of his teen, like he's trying to hide a facade of like, I'm like, what the fuck is? He's a grumpy person who's being put upon because he's trying to get home.
Right. It drives me crazy. Like it's the same
thing.
The
most adult thing there is.
It's the same thing. I had a girlfriend once who hated every movie that she watched because she's like, the main character isn't likable. And then she would explain things that like in Act 1, it's like, yeah, the character has to grow. The character has to learn something. Mm-hmm. You're upset that the character hasn't already learned the lesson. And like I feel like that's what this is here. It's like, yeah, he's got to learn. What movie doesn't have a character who's like, well, I'm in a pickle. Oh boy, I feel one way. I'm going to feel the other way by the time that we get to Act 3. But like, you got to get there.
Yeah.
It's the scene in Adaptation where Nicolas Cage is at the like Q&A speaking engagement with the successful screenwriter. I think it's Brian Cox.
Yeah.
And he's like, his question is, I'm working on a movie where nobody changes, nobody learns anything, and everybody stays exactly the same. And Brian Cox just eviscerates it.
I did background for Succession once, and was very close to Brian Cox, and like of all the things that I wanted to thank him for, the one thing that I had in my head was the line from that where he's like, and if you use voiceover in that movie, in your script, God help you. Like, it's such a great line delivery because he's irrationally mad there.
He's so upset about it.
Yeah.
That was like this. I met Bill Pullman in an elevator once, and I was like, hey, thank you so much for Spaceballs. And he just goes, no one's ever said that to me before. And I was like, man, I just want to be able to like I want to thank you for a thing that nobody's thanked you for.
Oh, dude, I think about that all the time. Mm-hmm. I think about what movie I would thank people for doing. That's just the most obscure thing that they've ever like. I forgot I was in that. I have a little like Rolodex of that kind of stuff. Every time I see someone like, wow, I didn't know they were in this thing. Like I would thank Kevin Bacon for his work in Planes, Trains. 100%.
Yeah.
That's such a. Like, oh, I'm not really in that movie.
But then there's
I actually just watched Spaceballs with my son. He's 8.5, and I was like, okay, this is perfect because he's going to laugh at plenty of the jokes that even now I'm like it was so refreshing. It was so wonderful watching that movie with him because one, he doesn't like Star Wars, so he loved that they were making fun of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then the jokes he was laughing at are all gags that when I watch the movie, I'm just like, oh, that's we just needed a joke here, but I'm not going to, it's nothing that I would ever quote, and it's nothing that ever really stuck with me, but he was dying at like, I mean, first of all, every time they say shit, he was just beside himself. And I was like, my God, some of the scenes, quite a few of the scenes just build to someone saying shit, and then that's our out, you know?
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is I hadn't watched it in quite a few years. And the Daphne Zuniga and Bill Pullman, they are so not like what you would expect in a Mel Brooks movie. And they're so perfect. Their love story and those two characters together, it's wild. I was sitting there being like, how am I being swept up in the love story of Spaceballs? Yeah, that's the truly, like, that's the care that was put into it. I'm like, that scene of them sitting, everyone's asleep, they're in the desert, and they're trying to find planet Druidia, and like they have that moment, and I'm like, this is why you need two actors like that, because otherwise it's just, you know, can you imagine if there was a love story in Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles? It's just like, or even Airplane. It's like Airplane has a love story,
right,
and those two work as far as you could in a zany world like that. But Spaceballs, as zany as it is still rooted in reality because of those two. It's incredible to watch.
I think that scene especially, it's like you just let that scene breathe, which is not something that you would ever see in something else, like you said, like an Airplane, where it's just literally
well, it's
two
funny,
people.
like no, and today, like, Suits would, you know, the studio would try to force like the love story into a movie, like that, and you're like, this is not the movie I'm making, you know. Thank God it was the movie Mel Brooks was making, but you know, at a time of 30 years ago when it's just like, all right, just let him do his what. Okay, you're making fun of Star Wars, great. So
either force it in or
amount.
make you pull it out and be like, we can't turn this scene into a TikTok, so we're not going to do it. Like,
I would love to know more about like what the reaction was by the higher ups, you know, when it's just like, what a balance that they, like a believable, just gorgeous little love story in the middle of this ridiculous movie where people are like taking nut shots and you know,
I know that as I get older, my sensibility, my sense of humor has really shifted to understated moments in heightened pieces of art. Anytime there's someone who's talking, you know, like we were talking about before, like the Monty Python movies where, you know, 'cause they're made of wood, you know, just this little moment.
That pause. John Cleese is the
it's
king
phenomenal.
of that
like
pause.
Moments of silence and quiet in heightened extreme movies. In Spaceballs,
there are some who call me
Tim.
In Spaceballs, the most recent time that I watched it, because Spaceballs is literally that, and Back to the Future 3 are the two movies where I wore the VHS out multiple times, so often that they're the movies I've seen the most, where it's not enough for me that you quote it correctly, you're quoting it with the wrong pauses. You're taking the breaths in the wrong place, so like
you're not timing it right. Yeah.
So I think I know everything there is to know about Spaceballs. I think I've got it all down. But I saw a moment that I had never caught before. It's when he's trying to investigate the ship that they just pulled in from the tractor beam, and Moranis walks in and he just, you know, says like, you know, I will investigate this personally, and the guard, the Nazi guard next to him just goes like, the Lord Helmet, you know, way over the top, and you just see Dark Helmet go. And it's
That's
just
so great.
It's just this little moment of like, no, and I had never seen it before.
Of it. There was a sight gag that my son pointed out to me that I'd never noticed before.
Wow.
It was something somewhere was like branded Spaceballs the whatever, and I was like.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh God, you're right, Jack. I never saw that before."
All right, let's see where we're at. Okay, yeah. Here we go. The real trouble with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is simpler. There wasn't much of an idea here to begin with. And when Mr. Hughes works with non-teenage characters, he has smaller reserves of colloquial humor upon which to draw.
It's like two titans of comedy in a movie.
In a great premise.
In the, like, they're trying to get to Chicago. That's all it needs to be.
Road trip, schlubby guy who doesn't know how he's coming off, and uptight businessman. It's a great premise.
It's the Odd Couple on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I was
more do
just
you
gonna
need?
say it's such a great premise. The movie has been done like three more times and given a different name and no credit. Like they make this movie every few years. It's the same idea, and it's great.
Bob Hope and Bing Crosby kept making,
The entire career.
this movie.
Yeah.
The same movie.
This is a beloved type of film. This feels like a note you would get again from like an out of touch studio guy, because it's like, oh, well, they're teens and John Hughes always used colloquial, I don't know why I can't say that word, references and humor. And I'm like, I'm racking my brain and I'm like, I can't recall anything. Like, the reason The Breakfast Club is timeless is because it's not inundated with, references hyper specific to 1984. Mm-hmm. 16 Candles. The only thing that's dated about that is the blatant racism. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like everything else is just, I mean, what? I can't think of anything where it's just like, if you didn't watch MTV at the time, you wouldn't have gotten this joke. Yet this guy has this fixed idea in his head of, because that is like the note you would get of like, well, these young people, they need to be referencing Billie Eilish,
Right.
or Olivia Rodrigo. It's like, I don't, maybe.
I mean,
in passing, but it can't be the heart of the joke.
The colloquial nature of this movie actually is more about like the technology involved. Like, if you want to show your kids this movie, you kind of got to be like, so pre 9/11, it was conceivable to get to the gate at an airport this quickly. And here's how we used to have to get on trains, and how we used to have to, when you don't have a cell phone, you have to go to a pay phone to do it. But he didn't know that at this time. Like, this is not,
Or there's that one scene where they're like, "What we can charge it? What kind of credit cards do you have?" And he's like, "I've got a Neiman Marcus card and a club card."
Right.
And he doesn't at one point. He just goes,
cash world,
and
baby.
I have a gas card. Like, trying to explain that to a modern,
Yeah, yeah.
One
Like,
man-
I just watched Ferris Bueller the other weekend, and it's like, at nowhere is it like, I mean, the music is omnipresent and dates it in that place, but it's like, he's got a computer and a synthesizer. That's basically it. And then the rest of it is just them having a great time in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is such that movie, it's wild how it's just predominantly them just hanging out. And then the two B stories of the sister trying to catch him and the principal trying to catch him. And then that moment when those two, basically the two villains of the movie, meet, in the house, it's just like, it's great. They're the only two people in the world that don't like Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's such a great tension that builds up. It's like, these people should be on the same side, and then they instantly become enemies.
Do you remember Parker Lewis Can't Lose?
I remember it well.
I think that was USA, and I remember
Gentlemen synchronized swatches. No, it was on Fox.
It was on Fox. That's right. I watched that
Fox
first, and then saw Ferris Bueller, and I'm like, ripping off
Well,
Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
if you recall, there was at the same season on NBC, I want to say, there was a Ferris Bueller TV show that failed, but Parker Lewis actually got a few seasons, and then I forget the actor's name, but Parker Lewis was in the first Stand miniseries as the as the guy who's like in love with what's her name.
Oh wow.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it when you see I think it was at the Mike Lawrence bit where he goes like, I saw Spaceballs before Star Wars, and like, so Star Wars was just unfunny Spaceballs. You know, like whatever it is that you see first is your reference
That's your
point.
flavor. Yeah.
And then you're like, this old looking movie is just ripping off Parker Lewis. Come on.
It's funny. We watched Spaceballs, and then I took my son to see the new Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh yeah,
and he was more into it because of the way that Spaceballs ended. Like when they come riding up on the horses, he's like,
"Oh, that's great!
Oh, is this Planet of the Apes? This is supposed to be like Planet of the Apes, right?"
And you're like, yeah. And
it's like, oh, this is a sequel to Spaceballs, then, isn't it?
And
That's right.
It does have your son's favorite line. Oh shit! There goes the planet.
Oh shit! Right.
Shit.
It's just building up to characters from another movie going, "Oh shit!"
Did we lose a little something though? Like I've always talked about the Simpsons references that I saw before the movie, before the thing that it's referencing. Spaceballs, seeing Spaceballs before I saw Planet of the Apes. You know, there's so many movie reveals, twist endings that I, missed because I saw the comedic parody of it before the thing itself, and it's like totally worth it. But like so much of my early adulthood was like context clues, and then I bet that's referencing something that at the time was not funny, but would have been a big reveal, and then seeing it later and being like, yeah, all right, I got it. It was Earth all along.
Well, I always got a kick out of, oh, that's what this, when I finally saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, I knew, and because that scene where the, whatever you want to call them, the Cro-Magnon men see the monolith and they're like dancing around it, I'm like, I had seen that referenced in so many comedies, especially The Simpsons, more than once, where I was like, this is from something. I know that this is from something. Or like, there was constantly references to, in the 80s, to Turkish prisons. And I'm like, this has to be in reference to a movie or something. And then it turned out it was, The Midnight Express. Because it is like, even in the pilot for the very first episode of the Cosby Show, like Denise brings home a guy for dinner, and like they're like, he was in a Turkish prison, Claire, and it's just like, like we all know culturally, we all know what happens in a Turkish prison, and it's just like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I've talked about this in the past, and I know your love for Carson. When I was a kid, I didn't know why Carson was funny. I didn't understand any of the references, but I watched every single night because I aspired to get why so many people were laughing at every little thing that he did. And I feel like that's something that's lost. I do have gray in my beard, but I'm not that old. It's lost in the modern generation where you picked up things through context clues, like you're saying, like you aspired to get, oh, now I understand. Oh, I'm putting the pieces together. Not everything was fun. Yeah.
It felt like you unlocked a level of adulthood by getting, for me, it was the Shining reference in Simpsons, of course. But all those little Shining notes. When I watched the movie, I was like, I get that, I get that, I get that, I get that. I loved it because I had seen the Treehouse of Horror before.
But it's because we weren't pandered to necessarily.
Because like two things out of like Spaceballs. When I was a kid, I remember we didn't get at the end when it's like, are you the best man? Yeah. What's your name? Bar. What's your full name? Bartholomew. We didn't understand what, and I remember watching that at my friend's house and the dad laughing, and both of us, me and my buddy, we turned and we're like, why is that funny? Why is that funny? And he's like, it's just a name. But my son, well, when we watched it, there were definitely times when I did like some Q laughing just to let him know, oh, that's funny. Just trying to. He's got a great sense of humor, but I just wanted to, continue to inform it of like that's a funny joke, or like that's the rhythm of a joke. But there's a place on Ventura Boulevard where they sell Vespas, and we've walked past it so many times, so he knows what a Vespa is. So when he heard that the character's name was Princess Vespa, he was just like, Princess Vespa, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I love that movie and will not hear an unkind word against it. He's an asshole, sir. I know that. What's his name? Okay. It's harder to have one man complain that traveling with another is like going on a date with a chatty Cathy doll than it would be to have a teenager deliver that line. None of Mr. Hughes' earlier films have revolved around anything more complicated than prom dates and parent troubles and getting along with schoolmates.
Oh, so he's never seen a John Hughes movie.
Yeah, basically.
Right. No one goes to a prom in any John Hughes movie.
I saw the poster. I feel like I got it.
Right.
And also, he watched Breakfast Club and was like...
He saw the end of 16 Candles and thought she was wearing a prom dress. She's going to her sister's wedding. Yeah. That's what's happening. And he was checked out.
Mm-hmm. But they
Breakfast Club is just 6 kids who make it through a day in detention.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Will you read those again?
Yeah.
What
So Mr. Hughes works with non-teenage characters. He has smaller reserves of colloquial humor upon which to draw. It's harder to have one man complain that traveling with the other is like going on a date with a chatty Cathy doll than it would be to have a teenager deliver that line. None of Mr. Hughes's earlier films have revolved around anything more complicated than prom dates and parent troubles and getting along with schoolmates. But they had a texture and authenticity that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles lacks. That inauthentic movie.
It's so funny. So Breakfast Club literally starts with the David Bowie quote, "These children that you spit on are quite aware of what they're going through."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally going like, this is deeper than you guys are going to understand. There's a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, those kids certainly discuss their parents, but it's like, it's so funny. He like clearly doesn't understand movies that he thinks are beneath him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We get that a lot with this show. And it's like people, because we do a lot of Spielberg. We've just, like when you want to pick a movie that's like a beloved, everybody loves it. And the number of people who the number of critics who come after him after he's already hit his the height of his powers. Like, they think that we're gonna. He's already made Schindler's List. You're not going to sell us on he doesn't know what he's doing as a director. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like Spielberg's lost for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
The note of his reviews.
It's so funny. Okay, so Mr. Martin and Mr. Candy are an easy twosome to watch, even with the marginal material, though, and the film is never worse than slow. The movie is slow. In fact, it's even promising at first, with the bound for trouble promise of a quick trip home for Neil Page, who phones his wife to tell her he'll be there by 10. As a blow-by-blow anatomy of a horrid traveling experience, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles has great potential, but it begins to meander once Neil and Del become a reluctant duo.
What? This movie is so tight. This started out as a 4-hour movie that got cut down to 89 minutes.
Mick, I don't think you heard what the reviewer said. The reviewer said as soon as they get together, that's when the movie hits its problems. It has potential until John Candy and Steve Martin get together.
Right up until there. Oh my god.
And also, it lacks authenticity. The I like me, my wife likes me monologue is
that
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
No amount of cheesy 80s music pumping underneath can detract from the fact that is some incredible work in a goofy comedy that like you immediately on a dime go from like, oh yeah, this guy is a total putz, like what a loser, to, oh, I'm on his side and Steve Martin's wrong. On a dime, because of how authentic that delivery is.
It's the heart of the movie.
Yeah.
It's my God.
No, but
What a-
He
what
also,
a-
this movie also made me turn to my partner and be like, I'm so sorry for all the things that I do that are Del Griffith. Because
taking your shoes off in the airport.
oh my God, there was a lot of stuff I saw in there where I'm like, oh yeah, that is a completely annoying person to be around, and I do that all the time.
Cut to you, and you're realizing that your socks are in the sink right now. You know, like,
Yeah, I'm just wiping my face with my underwear. It's just
Yeah,
a
like, oh,
real
man.
savage work. One thing that I will say about, like, this guy clearly has an issue with the pacing in the movie. One thing that I took away from this past watching of it is how great the little character bit parts are in this movie. Like how much the people who are not John Candy and Steve Martin hold this movie together.
they
Like,
come to play, every single
it's-
one of them. Yeah.
every one of them crushes their. It's just like they've got 5-10 lines, and everybody knocks it out of the park. Dylan Baker as Owen is one of the best, like, character actor, kind of just what a pinch hit home run to spit, wipe your hand, and then shake Steve Martin's hand is just the best little. And he just
Yeah.
he's
Staring
the best.
directly to camera, you know. Yeah.
Crushes it.
And again, I don't want to be dismissive, but I am from the South. Yes, that is a broad take, but if you don't think you can meet somebody like that in the South in 20 minutes, you have never been there. Like, I hate all these 80s comedies or something that will have like a broad interpretation of a character, and the review will be like, that's not real. And I'm like, go
like, I know
to an
that
antique
guy.
store in
Yeah.
Alabama and talk to me.
And just the way he doesn't, like, really, like, his eyes don't really
Yeah,
kinda do
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
It's just like, she's skinny and small, but she's strong.
Oh,
Her first baby came out sideways.
I scared everybody on the train on my way home when he's reaching for the gloves and the dog comes out. Literally, that was a jump scare for me.
It made
And-
you jump?
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
everybody. Do I have like literally everybody on the train saw me going like, oh, like that with my headphones on. I couldn't. It was too much. It was like I forgot that moment. I'm like, yeah. Again, because we've talked about this, I am such a sucker. Like, I am so naive with movies. Like, I never plan ahead. I never know who killed the guy or like who did the murder or anything like that. And
Yeah, you
I
live in the moment.
I
When you watch
live
a
in the
movie.
moment, so I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he's gonna get some gloves." Like I forgot that it's a comedy, and Steve Martin doesn't get anything he wants in this movie. And for a minute, I'm like, "Oh, well, at least he's gonna get some gloves." Yeah.
That's a great
okay.
little scene. I
So,
love it.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles has great potential, but it begins to meander once Neil and Del become a reluctant duo. Neil detests the loud, tirelessly jolly Del on sight, but fate forces them to share a plane ride, a hair-raising taxi trip, and even a bed. The great embarrassed flurry of man talk, hell of a game, with which these two leap out of bed the next morning is indeed funny, and the film does have its scattered moments. I'm not kidding. I read about 10 negative reviews for this movie, and every single one of them said that the only redeeming joke in the movie was the homophobic waking up out of bed.
And being, like, performative.
They were like,
bitch.
the
Cool.
movie is awful, but that knocks it out of the park, that one moment. Every single one of them, like, well, at least it had that, you know, and it's like, okay, you know, which
It's a comedy touchstone. You can draw from that well for days.
Yeah.
Dave.
You can take it as, you know, because he's like, the Bears, yeah, hell of a game, you know. But it's at the heart of it. You're just waking up spooning with a total stranger,
right. And I like that the movie ultimately is about people stepping outside of their comfort zone, being, finding an emotional connection where none existed before. So there's a greater theme at play than just like, ew, it's weird that they did that. And I applaud that, but it reminds me, the fact that all the reviewers love this scene reminds me of when we did the Birdcage, and every single negative review was like, boy, that conservative senator really steals the show. That conservative mindset, boy, Gene Hackman as that, boy, like I want to follow that character. And it's like, oh, you're telling me a lot about who you are with the one part of the movie you thought was great. Like, okay.
Yeah, because like I agree with you both that like it's the humor is the uncomfortableness of it. I don't think the guy writing this would agree with you. Mm-mm. I think he was like, it's funny because they might like they're acting gay. Like,
oh, sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I agree with you guys,
I'm
but
sure
I don't want
John
to give
Hughes,
this guy the benefit of the doubt.
No, I bet John Hughes would agree with that. So yeah, it's funny because they look like they're gay.
Yeah. The film does indeed have scattered moments, but too often the audience has as much reason as Del and Neil do to wonder where, if anywhere, they are going. That's the end of the review.
I wonder where they're going. What the can you say that one more time?
Yeah, but too often the audience... they don't know. They're not.
They literally, it's so clear where they're going that the first scene of the movie is they dim the lights in order to focus on exactly where they're going.
I'm going to Chicago.
Which I saw that and I was like, oh, remember when movies and shows used to do that for you?
Yeah.
Like,
when
you didn't have to figure out what the fuck people were texting to each other. It just, like...
I love the old inserts. Old inserts from like anything pre-1950 when like the guy's reading a telegram and literally the only thing you can read is what they want you, but they highlight it anyway as like your eyes should be down right. Your eyes should be right
here's
here.
What
right here. It's like I can't look at anything else.
Your son has died of influenza.
Yeah. Stop.
Stop.
Okay, so here's Washington Post. I'm just going to go through this real quick, like a quick little thing here. Washington Post, November 27th, 1987. How would you rate a comedy with, say, 6 funny moments spread out over, say, more than 2,000 miles? That's how this one starts.
Oh, the jokes per mile ratio isn't very good. Okay.
Worth most, but not all of your attention. Something to have on the tube, perhaps, while you unpack your luggage at a hotel before your speech at the Tube Joiners Convention.
Well, now you're just insulting me in my convention here. Like,
but also, what is happening? Can you talk about the movie, please? Martin and Candy could read you the phone bill and make you laugh. Martin, fresh from Roxanne, can make all 4 limbs look as though they're deserting his body, simultaneously and in different directions. And his smile may require a wide load sign when he's out driving. Candy, like the late great Jackie Gleason, has acres and acres of face to play with, and does.
Jackie Gleason must have just died.
Must have been, yeah, because this was literally November 87, yeah. But I wouldn't put them. I wouldn't compare them.
No, I mean he's fat. He's nothing like Jackie Gleason.
That's exactly what that is.
That's it.
Who else do I know? Fatty Arbuckle. There you go.
Wow, Jackie Gleason died in June of '87.
Wow. Okay, so it's only a couple months. The script and direction by Hughes, who made all those adolescent films from 16 Candles to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, amount to wobbly passes that Martin and Candy could turn into touchdowns anyway. So this guy's like, yeah, they do great, but it's only because it's...
because they're great.
They're great. We get that a lot where it's like a review for Jurassic Park will be like, yeah, the effects are amazing, and yeah, we've never seen anything like this on screen, and yeah, it's a great story, and yeah, the characters are very well developed, and yeah, they're doing a great job, but then what are you left with? And you're like, a great movie?
Yeah, what you're describing is a good movie.
Yeah, like I don't know how much more we can give you.
There's a Siskel and Ebert where they review Predator, and they both hate it, of course. And they go back and Ebert just goes, I mean, it's just alien meets Rambo, and I'm like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, sold. Yeah,
That sounds amazing. I'm
That's
like,
all
I
you have to put on the
guarantee
back.
they walked into the pitch and said, "What is this movie? It's Alien meets Rambo. Oh, here's $30 million.
Yeah.
Go make that
Yeah,
movie."
And everyone who hears that goes, I have 2 hours for that, 100%. Like,
I found
Yeah.
a YouTube clip of Siskel and Ebert on Carson. Chevy Chase is behind them, and they're
Sure, yeah.
trashing Three Amigos. And they're like, it's not good. It's not great. It's not very funny. And like Carson is desperately trying to like dig in, and he goes like, but wouldn't you say that like they're saying that judging a comedy is actually easier than judging a drama? And Ebert's like, yeah, because if you laugh, it's funny. If you don't, it's not. And like Carson's like, isn't that subjective? And isn't that way more like it's the most serious I've ever seen Carson, where he's like,
yeah, they're saying that to a professional comedian,
right, and he's trying desperately to go like,
who
I
has
need,
bombed
And I don't
before
know-
on good material,
right.
And I'm not sure if it's in that segment, if it's in that interview, but somewhere in that same area of discussion, Carson goes, well, drama's so easy because you can just be like, oh, there's a dead baby. Isn't that so sad? And it's just like, it's cheap. Drama is cheap. Whereas like comedy, he's like, I could do that same monologue I just did tomorrow night for 500 different people and get a completely different reaction.
Yeah, and watching because I've respected. There's been reviews where I've really gone like, Ebert really like knocked that out of the park, and then he'll say something like, no, if a comedy makes me laugh, I say it's funny, and you should go see it, and if it doesn't, I say you shouldn't. And I'm like, really?
Well, it was the era of the critic is king. That's what happened.
Yeah.
With all of this, that's what all of this.
Where else you gonna
is
go?
People
Who
have
else is gonna tell you?
Yeah, we are the tastemakers.
Yeah.
And my sense of humor is what I go on. Instead of any thought to like, maybe it's not for me.
I know. I mean, when like, because I'll get Blu-rays, to review on my TikTok, and I'm like, I always try to. I mean, I tell you what I thought of it. I'm like, I liked this. I didn't like this, but I'm more. What I'm trying to do is just tell you this is what kind of movie it is. So if you really like late '60s World War II movies, then this is exactly,
Exactly.
That's not
what you want.
That shouldn't be novel, but it really. I do the same thing when I'm doing a review for something. I end it with the phrase, if you are looking for blah, 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 then this will be up your alley. If, however, you're looking for da, 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 you might find this wanting. And that template really works for like the new Indiana Jones movie. I'm like, if you're just looking for a fun popcorn film that reminds you of the old Indiana Jones action, da, 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 you're going to have a great time. It's exactly that. If you are looking for something a little bit deeper, if you're looking for something that matches the Spielberg wonder and kind of holds together in this way, you're probably and it's like that's all you have to do because you are one person. You're not going to be able to speak for literally everybody.
Right.
And I think that like with the work that you have done, with how much you invest in this, your opinion carries way more weight. Your opinion of a top 5 movies that I should go watch right now is going to carry so much more weight because of the amount of investment that I know that you put into it.
Mm-hmm. And I do like, and especially because I get stuff that I'll ask for, and then I also get just sent stuff, and some of the stuff that I get sent, I'm like, look, this is, I enjoyed this, but I'm not saying necessarily you will. Some of this is upsetting, I don't know. Like Ebert loved Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. As shocking as that may sound, like he was like, and it's like, look, it is a very well-made movie, but it's like you can't just send anybody into that picture and be like, here you go.
Stamp of approval. Thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. We give it a thumbs up. It's like, what? That's not an appropriate review of a film like
Explain.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From
It's
1
like the
to
house
10.
that Jack built. You can't just be like, I liked it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Tense.
Right.
Mick, that's like me trying to explain how I'm doing in Elden Ring. You know, it's like, are you having fun? No, but that's kind of the point. You know, like, I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm stressful. I'm sweating, and my hand won't stop shaking. I'm having a great time.
That's how you know you're enjoying it.
Because that's the
Sure.
experience. That's what the experience is going for, you know?
Yeah, you have to explain those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at the end of the show. This is the big crescendo. Our favorite, 2 reviews and a lie. I'm about to read 3 1-star IMDb reviews for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. 2 are real. One of them I made up. Your job is to guess which one of them is my fake review. If Mick, Matt, you're playing with house money. If Mick can guess, if his guess is my fake review, I will post it on Rotten Tomatoes with my name attached as a real review coming from me. Just as a reminder, right now, apparently, according to how Mick has won this game in the past, I thought about Royal Tenenbaums. I didn't make it through the whole thing. Maybe it gets better, but I doubt it. I started watching because of the box art and thought the cast was spectacular. Turns out a movie needs more than star power. It needs characters to show emotion. And apparently I thought of No Country for Old Men. I love Woody Harrelson, but there's no reason for him to be in this film. He just sits there and dies. So that's the stakes we're
That
playing
one I
with.
really enjoy. That one I'm so glad was you.
God, anybody could see that. That's horrific. Okay, so these are 3 reviews. Review number 1. I didn't have very high expectations considering the age of the movie, but even then, my low expectations proved too much. Faults in the movie include, and then it's bullet points, terribly unfunny jokes, foul language that makes it unsuitable for kids, terrible acting. The characters make absolutely idiotic decisions that make no sense and worsen their predicament. Whenever there is a choice to be made, they make the one that is the opposite of what any reasonable person would do. Then there's like 3 empty spaces and then another bullet point. The whole plot is cliche and boring. Final comment, this movie is unwatchable garbage and a complete waste of time.
Oh my God.
That's review number 1. Review number 2. I like this one. The biggest problem with the movie is that the annoying character should be annoying to the other characters, but not annoying to us. Hello? Comedic attempts fall flat over and over, like the car somehow still driving after the explosion. That's when I was done. If I can't believe what's happening on screen, I can't laugh. And if I can't laugh, I can't suggest this to anyone else. No one would.
Wow. What a depressing lack of, like, just a refusal to suspend disbelief.
All right. You think that's depressing? Review number 3. Maudlin and mawkish. The usual Steve Martin performance of grimacing and throwing knock-kneed shapes teamed with Candy's awkward, squawking man-child buffoonery. The situations are contrived, Duess positively exudes from the machina, and the sentiment is splashed with a bucket. Avoid unless you like being battered around the head with clumsy lectures on the joys of loving one's fellow man. A script no doubt penned from inside a gated community behind a security fence. That's review number 3.
See, ordinarily with this, I get excited about one of them, and I hope it was you.
Yeah.
That's usually what I'm going for, because I like the idea that you would have to post that.
Mm-hmm.
All of these make me feel bad if I get it right. Because it means that there are 2 people out there in the world who believed the other 2 things.
Yeah, it's true.
So this one is just very depressing for me.
And that
How do
someone
you-
might order a hit on me with any of these.
Yikes! These are a group of people who do not enjoy
I think we should retitle the podcast to Maudlin and Mawkish. Myself.
Maudlin and Mawkish.
Those are. It's funny. Those are two words that I learned from watching Johnny Carson.
Yo, yeah, nice. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he loves using maudlin.
Yeah. That's man.
Oh, is that a clue? Dave's a Carson fan too.
So should I guess which one I think is
Yeah.
fake?
By all means.
I think it's number 2.
You think number 2 is fake? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree. I think number 2 is fake.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna copy and paste that review and put it on Rotten Tomatoes.
Woo!
Damn it.
You got it. Okay, read it one more time. Read it one more time. I
We're
want to hear it
getting-
again. I want to drink it in.
No, we're getting too good at this. Oh man, when we started, we couldn't guess which one was fake, and now we're. Oh my god.
You're. It's an arms race. We're getting better at figuring out each other's writing, but also our writing is getting worse. We're throwing in typos.
I love that you have on Rotten Tomatoes that what you thought about the Birdcage was Gene Hackman still has these problems at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's
The problems didn't go away.
This movie is not funny and just makes fun of people for disagreeing. I would have liked to see what happened to Gene Hackman's character after he leaves the Birdcage. He still has all those problems.
All right, here's my review again. The biggest problem with this movie is that the annoying characters should be annoying to other characters, but not annoying to us. Hello? Comedic attempts fall flat. Question mark, exclamation point. Comedic attempts fall flat over and over, like the car somehow still driving after an explosion. That's when I was done. If I can't believe what's happening on screen, I can't laugh. And if I can't laugh, I can't suggest this to anyone else. No one would.
Here are the tells for me. The car, it echoes Roger Ebert from the Tonight Show that you mentioned, where he's like, if it doesn't make me laugh, I can't recommend it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Also, it was kind of the porridge that Goldilocks would have picked, because the first one was so wildly, like, visualizing the way it was laid out.
Yeah.
Was so insane. And then the last one was somebody trying so hard to sound like a New York Times reviewer that I was like, this one is just right. And then also, right before you read it, you said, this one I really like. And I'm like, he's leading us to this one.
I've thrown that in a couple times, and usually it works for Mick.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was the narcissism of wanting desperately for you you both to think I could write good writing so well and pick the third one. Like if they think that I could write like as a joke that well and come and use those phrases, like, all right. And it blinded me to the truth, which you're right. It was the porridge in the middle, and it just
It was trying too hard to play it cool.
This is the incentive for really wanting this show to reach as many people as possible, so that it's understood that these are jokes, that these reviews that we're posting under our own name.
That's the key. I'll say this, Dave, and maybe I'm speaking against my own interest by telling you this, by revealing what is my usual tell. Your arguments have like a logic to them. Like your reviews usually make a point. A lot of the reviews are just like, look at all the words I know, or someone having an episode on their keyboard.
Right.
Like yours are usually like, here's how I see things, and this is why I don't like it. Therefore,
yeah,
you had a worldview built into that review, and I was like,
damn it.
oh. What I'm saying is embrace the chaos, buddy.
It's hard. It's not easy. Well, that is off the mark. Have you guys still like the movie, or did this turn you around on it's kind of hard to watch it now, after we've learned so much.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on it now. At best.
Yeah, it's tough. Thank you.
What do you think, Matt? You still like it?
Do I still like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? Yes, I do.
Okay, fair enough.
Matt, where can everybody find you?
At McCarthy Redhead on all forms of social media. TikTok is the place where I am watching a different videotape every single day this year. And if you like pro wrestling, you can listen to the We Watch Wrestling podcast, new episodes every Wednesday. And I talk about movies and pop culture and television with my beautiful and talented wife, Glennis, on Watch It with Matt and Glennis. And go to PeteHolmes.com. I'm on tour with Pete all summer. I think the next spot we're going to be is Houston, the first weekend of July.
Awesome. You can find me at DaveColumbo.com. Also, DVD Columbo on Instagram, Dave Columbo on ye old TikTok. Thank you so much. If you like the show, like, share, subscribe. Please tell us what we should do next, what movie we should do next. Send us your bad reviews, and please go into the comments of the guy on our Saving Private Ryan episode who thought that we were saying the movie has no story, and just remind them that context matters. That would be very nice.
And that our review is stolen valor, really.
Right, it's really... That's the Stolen Valor podcast. What's up, everybody? X to pay respects. Thank you so much. And until next time, this has been Off the Mark.